Well, good morning, everybody. Or if you're watching this as a recording, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time of day you might be watching it. Sorry for the delay. Had some things we had to get to. Apparently, we had to do a photo shoot for, something that we weren't aware of what the photo shoot is for. But anyway, lots of stuff to cover on the AfterBuzz today. My voice still kind of recovering a little bit. I've noticed this on the show this week. Like if I get talking a lot, which obviously I'm going to be doing here on the AfterBuzz, it'll start to kind of fade in and out. So I need to kind of pace myself here a little bit. But welcome to the AfterBuzz. Thank you guys for being here. While you're here, make sure that down below you're clicking the like button. Make sure that you're hitting the bell to get the notifications. You're subscribing to the channel. You know, all that stuff that the typical YouTube people tell you to do before the video. I got to make sure I get that in to make sure that everybody's doing that stuff down there. And so anyway, so a lot of different topics that we're going to cover today. I've got some Ireland stories. I got a couple specific ones that I'll get to here from when I got to go to Dublin for St. Patrick's Day. We're going to talk about some movies. We got The Dirt, which I watched over the weekend. That's obviously the Motley Crue documentary. We got Triple Frontier. That's the movie with Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, and the guy's name I keep flipping forgetting. He was in Game of Thrones. And he's a great actor. He was also in Narcos. And it's something Pascal. And I keep forgetting his name, and I feel awful that I'm forgetting his name because he's an amazing actor.
Pedro Pascal?
I believe that's it. Yes, Pedro.
He was
Pascal. Yes, he was the Viper.
The Viper
in Game of Thrones. But he plays the pilot in the movie Triple Frontier. Also going to talk about scary video games because one of the things that we brought up on the Buzz Adams Morning Show this week was what movies scarred you, like as a kid. Well, it was intended to be as a kid, but there was a whole lot of people that came back of things that they saw as an adult that really scarred them. And then also I'm going to tease something to see if you guys want me to do it or not. But that will be coming up here at the end. So let's jump right into the topics for this week's AfterBuzz. Again, if you guys have any comments, if you have any questions or anything, by all means, hit them up in the YouTube chat there. If I'll get to them as quickly as I can. The difficulty being that as I'm trying to discuss a topic, reading and discussing at the same time, it's not as easy as you think it would be. But anyway, so first topic that we'll get to today. So Kim saying, warn me before the dirt talk. Why? Do you not know what happens to Motley Crue? Like, do you don't want spoiler alerts? But Joe's asking about Love, Death, and Robots. We'll get to that here after Ireland talk, actually. I'll bring that up to you because I haven't finished the series yet. So I don't... Kim says, I do, but I want to see it. Smart ass. Well, yeah, I'm not really sure what I would be spoiling about it, but Motley Crue's a band. They were heavy into drugs. And, if you've read the book, then yeah, obviously that stuff will come up. But just for that, I'm not going to warn you at all. I'm just going to fucking get right into it and be like, oh, they changed the story. Vince Neil dies. If you don't know that I'm joking, I've been seriously. But anyway, no, we'll get to that here in a minute. But the Ireland stories, because this is something that got brought up last week because it was right after my birthday, which is St. Patrick's Day. And I was fortunate enough to spend my 29th and 30th birthday over in Dublin, Ireland. And it was done by Jameson Irish Whiskey. They do a global broadcast where they bring radio stations from all across the globe. There's a bunch of United States. There is... there's Australia, Canada, Brazil, Argentina, Japan, like truly across the globe. I ended up on a Japanese radio station. It was awesome. And so this was when I was in Florida where I, went by the nickname Goat. And we're hanging out at a bar, and this one lady from one of the stations, she comes over, kind of broken English and stuff, trying to, basically, they just kind of wanted to get a feeling of where everybody was from. So really all they wanted you to do was say your name and where you're from. And so I did. And it's like, I won't try to do it because my voice and everything, but it was like watching like an anime movie. And it was, that's what it's got Florida. And it was fucking awesome, dude. I'm like, dude, I'm on Japanese radio. That's the shit. But that was super cool, and that's not even one of the stories I was going to bring up. But that's what was really cool is there's all these different radio stations from across the globe, and you got to see how they broadcast. You got to see the kind of equipment they were dealing with. You got to hear radio in their language, which was super fucking cool. But anyway, so the first story had to do with, I think it was the first night we were in Ireland. So the first year I went with my boss Kevin, and they had most of the time kind of planned out, but they did allow you some free time to go do what you want. That was usually used for naps, because not a lot of people really know how to hold their whiskey. So what you would get is a lot of these radio people who would be around a bunch of free whiskey, and they didn't know how to handle it, so they would get hammered, and then they would need to go nap for a few hours in the middle of the day. Plus, you compound that on top of the time change, which really messes with everybody. So... And it was always funny at the beginning of the trip, everybody's kind of like ready to go. Like, yeah, we're in Ireland. This is St. Patrick's Day. This could be shit. And then by like day 3, people are showing up to events and they're like a zombie. And they're like, I just want to sleep and no more whiskey. Where Kevin and I are like, fucking bring it, dude. Like, we'll drink it all for everybody. Oh, shit. There's a third story. Fuck. Hold on. So we're up to 3 stories now. I haven't even gotten to the first one yet when it comes to Ireland. But for the first one, I think it was the first night we were in town. Kevin and I got split up, and one of the cool things that they would do is they would specifically split up anybody from the same radio station to make sure that you're interacting with the other radio stations, you're interacting with other countries. And I kind of got roped in with this one group. There was a bunch of guys. There was a guy from, I think, Minnesota, a dude from Seattle. Mostly United States, but there was a couple of other people, from other places across the globe, and we just all kind of were hanging out. And it was like, hey, well, let's go to this one bar down the street. So they held us up at this really nice hotel. I want to say it was right across from St. Stephen's Green, I think was the name of the place, which was like this nice big park. And there's a bar that's right down the street. And if you've ever heard of I believe it was the Dubliners, this bar is where they started. Like when you walked into the bar, they kind of had this open area to the right, and it looked like it was kind of set up for a band. It's like a big kind of round bench seat, and you have a place to put equipment and stuff, and that's where the not the Pogues, the Dubliners got started. The Pogues came up at another point, I think, at this point in time. But yeah, so we're all hanging out there. We go order some drinks. And it was, so you got this bar, and then there's like an alleyway, and then there was another bar that's next door. But this alleyway, it looks like if you were just to be one person, it'd be that kind of dark alleyway that you wouldn't want to be caught, alone in. But it's an area where people go back and forth. So it's like it's well lit. It's a really cool looking area, and we just kind of start shooting the shit with these Irish dudes. And man, I'm telling you, if you want a good time, just go to Ireland and just talk to the local people because they're amazing. Like they're great storytellers. They're really interested in what you have to say. Like it was some really good conversations with people over there. And we're just talking with this group of dudes. I think there was like 4 or 5 of them. And randomly, one of them left to the bathroom, and he comes back, and he's kind of standing behind his group as we're all kind of talking. And he gets behind him and just pantses his buddy. But when he goes to pants him, his buddy goes to like hold him back up. And he doesn't realize he also grabbed the dude's underwear. So he pulls it down. So the dude's ween's hanging out like in the middle of this alley with all these people around. And they don't give a fuck. Like, they don't care. The dude's like, yeah, whatever. So finally the guy lets go of his pants. He's like, yeah, whatever. So then they kind of start to struggle. But then he realizes they're going to take the pants completely off. And so that's when he's like, oh, no. So then they're having this battle where this dude with those little Irish weenie like flopping around. And so they rip this dude's pants off. And so then he's just standing there, and then he at this point he's like, you know what? I'm going to fully embrace this moment. There's nothing I can do. They took my pants. It's actually now in the other bar because the one guy threw it inside the bar, like his pants and underwear. And so he's just standing there, completely butt naked from the waist down. Like he's still got his shirt on, but there ain't nothing on down below. And they just act like it was nothing. It's like, let's just continue the conversation. Let's go ahead. Eventually, obviously, the guy went and got his pants and he put his pants back on. Yeah, but like it was just super hilarious. Like it was so damn funny hanging out with these guys because they were there to just enjoy and have a good time. Son of a bitch. There's a 4th story I just thought of now talking about this one. But it just in general, like they're all there just to have fun. Like you constantly hear these stories from over there about like the hooligans and these people who are always looking to fight. And like you hear these horror stories here in the United States about how, if you're in a bar in Ireland, like there's going to be fights. I didn't see a single fight. There was a story where a guy, I guess in a previous year, who, well, for a radio station, he did get in a fight, I guess, because he got the Jameson motto tattooed on his arm, which was Cinema 2, which I think is seize the day or something like that. But it's the Jameson family motto, which means without fear is actually what it means. And so Cinema 2, and so he had that because this dude, he honest to God, he got in a fight, and it's the only fight that I'd even heard of. But just hanging out with these guys was pretty cool. Which another story that kind of brings up, there's a huge rugby match during one of the trips. It might have been the first or the second time, I can't remember which one, but it was between Scotland and Ireland. And like you remember, you hear all of these stories about hooligans, and if it's two different sides, like they're going to brawl, like it's these gigantic fights. And Kevin and I were up at the upper level of this one bar, and we're sitting there, and they're watching the rugby match, and it's a bunch of older guys, I would say probably 45 to 80 maybe, and they've got their kilts on. All the Scottish dudes are in blue, all the Irish guys are in green, and they're sitting there watching this rugby match. And Kevin and I were kind of like, when this thing's over, we might want to think about, getting out of here because whoever loses might be a little upset. So we did leave, but we came back. And when we came back, it was the most amazing sight we'd ever seen. These guys got, like, it didn't matter who you were. So picture this. This would be like Cowboys and Giants fans, or Cowboys and Redskins or something, or Yankees and Red Sox fans, because these are two opposing countries. And like they got their arm around each other. And look, the hooligan stuff happens. I mean, you wouldn't hear the stories if they didn't happen. But when we showed back up, it's all these guys. It didn't matter who you were rooting for. They had their arm around the other guy. They're singing songs. They're clanging beers. They're getting wasted. And they're having an absolute blast. It was one of the coolest, most amazing things I've ever seen. Manny in the chat, he's asking if I got to check out any football games. I did not, unfortunately. That's not something that we had time to do. But one of the things that we did do is we flew out to the Jameson Distillery. It's in Middleton, Ireland, and that's where they currently distill the Jameson whiskey. The old Jameson Distillery is in the city of Dublin, and that's where we would broadcast from, but that's turned into a museum at this point. It's not anything to do with actually, distilling and making the whiskey. So they flew us out to Middleton. And at the very end of this tour that you do at the distillery, one of the things that they do is it's a taste test. But Kevin and I added a whole extra level to it where we weren't going to taste it. We were just going to do it by smell. And there's 4 different whiskeys. There was Jameson, obviously. There was Bushmills. There was Crown Royal. And there was Jack Daniels. And you were given a piece of paper. And on the piece of paper, you got 4 circles on this piece of paper, and what you needed to do was you needed to put each whiskey on top of the circle with the corresponding name. You needed to put the Jameson over the Jameson name, Jack Daniels over Jack Daniels, so on and so forth. And Kevin and I got to the point, like we did this both times. We did it at the distillery the first time, and then they did it at a bar the second trip that we went. And it was at the second trip when Kevin and I, we already knew the game, and Kevin and I know whiskey well enough that we were like, okay, like we don't even need to taste these things. So it's during this like kind of quiz show where you're grouped up into teams, and it was me and I think 3 other people, so I think it was groups of 4, and our team was behind. We weren't doing that well, and then they brought out this game, and the person who was hosting the game, they started to explain it. They get to the rules, and I raised my hand, and I was like, can we get extra points if we don't taste it at all, if we just do it by smell? And the guy was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm thinking that there's any way we can do it. And I'm like, watch this. And all 3 of my teammates are like, what the fuck? Like, there was a Russian chick who spoke very little English. And I'm like telling her, no, don't drink it. Like, hold on. So all I did was Jack Daniels, Crown Royal, Bushmills, Jameson. Like, boom, 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 boom. And we got 100%, which we didn't end up winning the whole game. But that was at least a little impressive to the people who were hosting for us. so we were able to do that, and that was always something that was pretty cool, and it's something I always want to try here. That I think would be kind of cool is to go get those 4 bottles and see if people can or can't distinguish between each different type of whiskey. Um,
Looks like that's the setup you're talking about, where you've got a matchup.
yeah, it looks very similar to that. Yeah. So we have Cruz is asking how long was the trip. So each trip, Jameson paid for, I believe, 4 days. With St. Patrick's Day being on the 17th, you would fly out on the 14th, I think. So it was 14th, 15th. No, I'm sorry, the 15th. 15th, 16th, 17th, you'd fly back on the 18th. So it was a pretty quick trip for that, to fly overseas. The second time we went, we extended our stay though. Like we booked our own plane flight, or we switched our plane flight and stayed in a hotel so we could go do more stuff. But yeah, so the whiskey thing was pretty cool, and it kind of reminds me because I guess they did something on the morning show before I was a part of it when they did it with Bud Light, Miller Light, Coors Light, of can you taste the difference? There was a time where I could. Specifically Miller Lite. That one's obviously, that's the one that you can tell above all else which one, it tastes distinctly different than Bud Light or Coors Light or anything like that. But it's a good test. If you want to do it, just it's Jameson, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal, and Bushmills, and give it a shot and see if you can tell the difference between them. And as we were ending the tour, the first trip that we went, we were ending the tour on in the distillery. What ended up happening was they take you to where all the barrels are aging. That's the perfect shot because that's where you're at. Producer Dave on top of it. And so that's what it looks like. And they explain to you all these different things. Like they have some barrels that have clear, like they have this one section where it's just got like 4 barrels on the wall. And they're explaining to you why specific whiskeys are more expensive and why some taste better. Because during the aging process, it evaporates. That's what they call the angel's share. Mm-hmm. And you can see it on this clear plastic side of the barrel, just how much is in there based on how many years it's been in this barrel. And, when it gets down to like an 18-year, like there's not that much whiskey in there. And that's why those are so expensive. But as this process is happening, the impurities and stuff like that are being taken out of the whiskey, which is why it's a much smoother taste, and you're able to taste more of, the kind of wood that it was in, or the kind of, ingredients that were used for the specific type of whiskey. Uh-huh. And one of the cool things that Jameson does is in the United States, I believe you have to use fresh barrels. At least at the time when we did this was the law. I don't know if it still is, but like Jack Daniels has to use fresh barrels.
Every time they're making a new batch, okay.
You cannot reuse barrels. Over in Ireland, that's kind of one of their trademarks, is they use previously used barrels. And so one of the things that Jameson does is they would buy a lot of brandy barrels from Spain. And so they would buy those up, and that's where you can kind of get those hints of the previous brandy that was in those barrels in the Jameson. And that's how you get these different flavors and different smells when it comes to these whiskeys. So what we got to do at the very end is they broke out a brand new barrel of 18-year-old whiskey. And if you've never had 18-year-old whiskey, you're missing out in life. Even if you don't like whiskey, it's something you need to try at least once. Don't buy it at a bar because it's going to be freakishly expensive. It's expensive as it is when you buy it at a liquor store. I want to say at one point the 18-year was going for like $180 a bottle or something like that. But if you've never had 18-year, it's amazing. Now, what we got to do, they have the master distiller there, and he's got this barrel, and he pulls out this kind of metal, looks like a turkey baster kind of a thing.
Okay.
And so what they do is they uncork it, sticks it in there, and then pulls it out, and then they've got these glass pitchers, and he just, and like there's a hole on the other end that he plugs with his thumb. So it fills up, you plug it with your thumb, you pull it out, let it go, and then it pours it into the glass pitcher, and it's as fresh as you can get 18-year-old whiskey. I mean, it's right out of the barrel. So Kevin and I are in fucking heaven at this point. But this is like day 2 of the trip, so most people are already tired. They got a crappy night's sleep before. They're probably super hungover still, if not still just a little bit drunk. And all they're thinking about is lunch because it's been delayed and everybody just wants to go to lunch. Where Kevin and I, we hung around, we talked to the distiller afterwards. And like, there's just pictures of 18-year whiskey sitting on these tables. I told Kevin, I'm like, dude, I wish I had just like Ziploc baggies so I could just fill them and stick them in my pockets. Like, this is like, when are we ever going to be around this thing? This is 18-year whiskey, man. And all these people couldn't give a fuck. Like, they truly were just like, that's great. We're gone. Like, we tried it. We're done. Or Kevin and I are like, just like, hell yeah, let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy this moment. So, of course, we were the last ones to get to lunch that day. But, man, I'm telling you, if you get a chance, if you're over in Ireland, make your way out to Middleton, do the Jameson Distillery tour. It's well worth it. Now,
it looks like a blast.
If you're in Dublin, make sure that you go check out the Guinness brewery tour because that one's dope because obviously you kind of go through the whole thing of how they make the beer, how they kind of stumbled onto the recipe for Guinness. And then when you end up at the top, there's a 360-degree view of Dublin. It's this bar that they have that's like up on top of this kind of mini Space Needle looking thing where you get to go up there and you get to, you get your free Guinness up there. And for the love of God, pay attention to what they're saying on the Guinness tour because the proper way to pour a Guinness is you pour it about 2/3 full, you let it sit for 90 seconds, and then you finish topping it off. Clearly, everybody that we went on this tour with wasn't paying attention because what they do is they have the station set up where one person's filling them up 2/3 full, and then they let them sit, and then they have another tap right here where the person takes these ones, and then they fill them up, and then they move them. And that's how you're properly supposed to pour Guinness, so it gets all the flavor out. Like you're allowing it to settle. And like there's so many people that walked up, and if this is the pint of Guinness, it's only filled up this much, and people are going to grab those. And it's like, dude, first of all, it's not full. Don't you fucking think that that they would fill them up? And if you paid attention at all during the tour, you know that these ones are not ready to be drank. Move your ass 10 feet over. That's where they are. So do it if you get a chance. Do the Guinness brewery tour as well. So that's kind of the Ireland stories. There's a few other ones that I could bring up, but I don't want to bog this down with too many Ireland stories, considering I was intending on 2, and I ended up telling about 5. But moving on to some movie talk now. The first one is The Dirt. I watched that over the weekend. I was in Austin with the wife. She's doing her fellowship out there. So I spend the weekends working. Like I kind of have an agreement, with Kevin that I kind of take work days when I go over there to bank days off. And so I get a chance to produce a bunch of stuff and I get to do a lot of the work that I don't have time to do on a regular basis. One of which was I need to watch The Dirt so I could talk about it, on the air. Didn't realize I was going to be the only person on the damn morning show that was going to watch The Dirt. Damn good movie though. I was thoroughly impressed. I was very tentative when you got guys like Machine Gun Kelly acting. But I thought it was incredibly well done. It was very cheesy. It was hokey. It was totally Motley Crue, man. I mean, if you're expecting anything else, then I think you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. But I thought Jeff Tremaine did a great job. I think the actors did a pretty damn good job. I thought the storyline flowed very well. They kept true to the Motley Crue storyline, which is, if you've heard anything, with Bohemian Rhapsody, they don't keep true to the storyline at all. It's like, well, we kind of have these things that happened, but we're just gonna mix it all up. And like Bryan Singer, go fuck yourself. First of all, the guy's a perv. Like we're starting to find that crap out. But then he does this movie and he butchers the Queen story. Like it pisses me off. But damn it, I'll still watch it if it's on TV. But in regards to The Dirt, like they kept true to that formula. Although it starts out, and the one thing that I did like that I don't normally like is they have like the different characters or the actors as the bandmates kind of narrating it like, hey, this is what happened. And it starts out with just Nikki Sixx. So then you think, okay, this is going to be a Nikki Sixx thing. He's going to be talking about it. But nope, they all kind of jump in and chime in at certain moments, kind of explaining, hey, this is what happened here. This is what happened there, blah, 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 blah. And I thought it was an incredibly well done movie. And I think if I'm rating it based on movie alone, The Dirt is a better movie than Bohemian Rhapsody, and a lot of it also does have to do with the storyline. But I just thought it was an incredibly fun movie. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm gonna watch it again.
I know Buzz was giving you a little bit of shit about that. I guess this morning was.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't seen it. I think he's
okay.
Yeah, he hasn't seen it yet, and I think he's planning on watching it, which I recommend. I don't think it'll be his cup of tea though. Not to say that he's wrong or anything, but I don't think that the movie will be like. I think that he will find it too cheesy and too hokey. Where for me, I'm like, that's what I think of when I think of Motley Crue. But I thought it was a very well done documentary, because the one thing that he asked about, or not documentary, like biopic, the one thing that he asked about was kind of the death of Razzle, which was the drummer of I'm blanking on the band's name now, but it was the guy that died in the car accident with Vince Neil, and it was Hanoi Rocks was the name of the band, and his name was Razzle, and he passed away when Vince Neil got into a car crash, and they didn't glaze over that shit at all. Like that was a major plot point in this movie, where they showed the car crash, and it got brought up later on when the band is starting to have some turmoil. You could see that not Nikki Sixx. You could see that Vince Neil was still having issues with this, and he bring it up to the band like, you guys blame me for this when it could have been any one of you guys. It just happened to be me. It was a very well done movie. If you haven't seen The Dirt, I could not recommend it enough. You don't even have to necessarily be a Motley Crue fan to like it. I kind of like Motley Crue. You guys know I hate Nikki Sixx. Like I think that guy's a shithead. He's just anytime I've been involved with an interview, the guy's just been an asshole. But on the flip side, Tommy Lee is one of the coolest damn guys. I've gotten to interview him multiple times, and every single time that guy was he's just super personable, just wants to have fun, have a good time, and just wants to shoot the shit. He was always super cool. When it comes to their music, yeah, I like it. I don't know if I would ever really necessarily put it on my playlist, but I'll definitely listen to it. If somebody's playing it, I'll listen to it and I'll sing along. But I thought The Dirt was a fantastic movie. Excuse me. See, there it is. The voice is starting to go a little bit here, but we'll power through this. So the next movie that we're going to talk about is Triple Frontier. This is the movie that stars Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy, who was the original dude that was picked to play, I guess, Christian Grey in the 30 Shades of Grey movies, and people were like super upset about it, like he wasn't the look that they were looking for. And then it's also got Pedro Pascal, and Garrett Hedlund is the other guy who's in this. He plays another one of the guys, and he's been in other things. Garrett Hedlund has been, but I couldn't remember. Like he's one of those guys, like I recognize his face, but I was never able to kind of remember exactly what he was in. Oh, that's what he was. Sam Flynn in Tron Legacy. He was the son.
Oh, that's right.
He was Sam Flynn in Tron. I knew him from somewhere, but I can't recommend this movie enough. Well, I take it back. It's a good movie. I don't know if it's a great movie, but producer Dave has seen it too. And I don't want to give away any spoilers. I don't want to ruin the movie if you do want to see it. So maybe at a later date we can do like a review, kind of like, hey, what did you guys think? But I did think it was a good movie. I'm glad that I watched it.
I would recommend it. Yeah, that was a good movie to watch.
I thought I would recommend it. I just don't know if I would be like, you have to see this movie. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it's worthy of that. But it is a really, really good movie. And a little unsettling too, kind of watching it, at least for me. Producer Dave here is going to come from a completely different aspect, being former military. Me, just a pussy ass radio DJ. But like it's one of those things that like there's kind of some uncomfortable moments. You're not really quite sure what's going to happen. Like it does a really good job of kind of building up something. Like is something going to happen and then nothing does happen, or like all of a sudden you get comfortable and then bam, something does happen, and it's like there's a whole lot of these different aspects of it. And it was a really good. It was a really good. I thought it was a really good movie. Go check it out. And then the final topic for today. I'm sorry, kind of a little bit scatterbrained here today, just because trying to rush to get this episode of the AfterBuzz on, because we had to do a photo shoot here in the green room with the entire morning show, and trying to corral them. It's like trying to fucking corral cats on fucking catnip, for crying out loud. But anyway, so the final thing is I'm going to talk about scary video games, because one of the things that we talked about earlier this week on the morning show was what was something that scarred you as a kid, like like a movie scene. And I was thinking more specifically movie scenes, because there's a couple that I can think of. One was the RoboCop melting guy scene when he runs into the vat of acid. He's like, oh, and like, man, the special effects did such an amazing job, because like he's holding his hand, but they make it look like the skin is actually melting off the bone. Like you can see. You don't see the bone itself, but you see the outline of the bone under the flesh because it's dripping down. It looks like wax. Man, I'm gonna fuck a kid up. And then the other one was the scene from Superman 3 when the chick turns into the robot. Holy crap, that terrified the hell out of me. Not a lot of people know this scene, but I'm telling you, look up that. What was it on YouTube? It's called Superman 3 robot scene, maybe. I think is where it might pop up. And yeah, just type in Superman 3 robot scene, and there's a like where all of a sudden she opens her eyes and they're all completely grayed out. Fucking terrifying as a kid. But so we kind of brought that up, and somebody brought up scary video games in the chat, in the Facebook chat while we were talking about this stuff. And there was a time, this would have probably been early 2000s, I think, where a good buddy of mine, Alan, he and I would play video games for hours on end. Like I would go to his house. He had every system. He had at the time it was the 360. It was the PS2, which I think eventually became a PS3. He had all the Nintendo. Like he had every system you could possibly think of. So we would just go over there and we just randomly pick games, and we would. What the hell was the game? Oh, so what we would do is we would go down to GameStop, and we would have like $15 between us, and we would go get Super Burrito, which was a local like burrito joint down there, big fucking huge burritos. We would go get Super Burrito. He would have 2 liters of Coke back at the house. This is back when I could actually drink Coca-Cola, and we would go get the Super Burrito with the Cajun fries, and then on the way back we would go stop at GameStop and we would go buy a used game. We would just randomly pick one. Let's have some fun. Let's find out what it is. And I think this was after we had played Silent Hill, one of the Silent Hills. It was just fucking terrifying.
Yes.
And the thing that what made it even more terrifying is when you play those goddamn games in the dark. Like you turn off all the lights. And we didn't do this intentionally. Like the first time we did it, we just stumbled into this because we would truly play video games for like 12 to 15 hours straight. Like it was an all-day thing where it was like, hey, I don't have to work today. You don't have to work today. Let's just go play some video games. So we did. And, we were sitting there and the sun had gone down. We hadn't turned the lights on, but the TV is what's lighting up the room. And all of a sudden we're playing Silent Hill. Fuck, did that get creepy? Like walking around the corner in the hallway to go use the restroom was like freaking me out.
You got to flip on all the lights.
Yeah, you're doing everything. So what we ended up doing was the next time we went and bought a used game, we went and bought a game called Fatal Frame. And if you've never heard of Fatal Frame, fucking scary. So Fatal Frame, the whole storyline is you're this girl who needs to go out to this haunted house to try to find out what happened to her brother. And I think there's multiple different versions. There's a whole series of them, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the Fatal Frames. And so your only weapon is a camera, because it's the supernatural camera that if you are able to take the proper photograph of a ghost, it traps the ghost inside the camera. But it's not as simple as just, clicking the picture. Like you got to have everything lined up properly and everything like that. And oh my God. So after the Silent Hill incident of where we kind of stumbled into it, we're like, we're going to have some fun. Let's scare the crap out of each other. So what we did is we make sure all the lights are off except for the television. It's dark outside, the patio lights off, everything. And then we start playing Fatal Frame. And we would get maybe 10 minutes into it. And we're like, fuck this. We're either turning the lights on. We're switching to like NBA basketball. We're doing something else because we're like, this is some creepy stuff. And so Alan, at this time, he was still living with his parents. They lived at the end of a cul-de-sac. And I remember the first day after we played Fatal Frame, and it took us probably 3 or 4 different times when that we played this game. Like we didn't just pop it in and play for like 4 hours straight. We popped it in, scare the crap for about 20 minutes, put something else in, go back to Fatal Frame, scare the crap out of each other, go play a different game for a little bit. And that's how this thing worked in chunks. But what happened was the cul-de-sac he lived in was not well lit. And my car would be parked because it was kind of awkward to park there because his parents worked odd hours and I didn't want to block the driveway, so I had to park up the street a little bit. And I'm telling you, I'm getting ready to leave. We're at the front door, and I can see through like his patio, past these trees, up the street where there's like one street light that's shining on my car, but everything else around it's completely dark. And I don't want to be a wimp. I'm like 23 years old, but I'm like, fuck, this sucks. So as I'm kind of sitting there, I'm like looking out and I'm taking a peek. And Alan's like, all right, man, I'll see you later. And I'm like, bye.
You're not gonna walk me out?
Yeah, I'm like, you don't have to. And no, I think I mentioned. I'm like, dude, like, do you want to go out there with me? He goes, no, because then I got to walk back. And I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. So we ended up he shuts the door, and man, I hauled ass. Like I ran. I'm a 23-year-old man on a full sprint just to get to my car because I was that scared from that stupid video game. And then you would think, oh, that's the last time we're gonna do that. No. Almost every time we would go back to the Fatal Frame because it was fun. It was exciting. It was this really, really fun thing to do. And Alan was great, man, because he and I, we would just, he was one of those good friends that I had from when we were 6 years old, when we played soccer together, went to elementary school. High school, we kind of drifted apart because we hung out with different groups. But then post high school, we ended up going to the same community college. And we ended up in one of the same classes, and we kind of reconnected and became best friends again at that point. And just kind of went on from there. And I feel bad because I actually haven't talked to the guy in ages at this point. But one of the things that we would also do is we would draft our own NBA teams. So we would pick whatever the latest NBA 2K whatever was. Mm-hmm. And oh man, I remember when you had the Dreamcast. Oh, the Dreamcast was awesome. Oh, if you never played the Dreamcast, you were missing out. That system was great. But what we would do is we would do a 3-point shootout because there were sometimes they had the actual 3-point shootout in the game. An updated version might not have that, so you just have to go to practice mode, and then we would shoot threes, and whoever made the most got first pick. And what we would do is we drafted our own teams. So we wouldn't play through a whole season like, oh, I'll be the Blazers, you be, the Celtics, or wherever it may be. It was you got your team, and then we draft them, and then we, compete against each other constantly. And God, he used to kick that in my ass so much too. I was awful at video games. Really? He was that dude that would just kick the shit out of me. Getting one win out of a dozen was good for me, I think. But I remember they had all these fake logos made up for the fake teams.
I think I remember that.
And this was when they would also incorporate the fake team names by the announcers. One of the fake names was the Sploosh. No? I'm not making this up. I'm totally not making this up. And this was before we realized that, because I think this was the first year they incorporated the fake names into the game. And what was so funny was I had done my team. I got my logo. I picked my team name and everything else like that. And it came out if you pick this logo, this will be this is kind of the recommended team name, but you can change it if you want to. But if you change it, the announcers won't say it. But there was this one where it was it was a basketball going through the hoop, but it looked like it was splashing in water, and it was called the Sploosh. And so we would create fake, I think mine was Goatville something. My city was Goatville, and then the team name was something else. And when we saw the Sploosh, man, fucking Alan, it was These Nuts Sploosh was the team name. So and you're sitting there and we're playing the game, and it was and I'm trying to think of Marcus Camby was a big guy back then. He was out of Massachusetts. I think at the time he might have been playing for Denver or somebody, but he was one of the bigger stars because he was that one kind of true center who could block shots. And I just remember it was SWAT for the Sploosh by Camby. And I was we're giggling like idiots because it's so funny to us. And we played probably dozens and dozens of games. Never got less funny listening to the announcer say Sploosh. It was great. But anyway, so those are the video game stories. And if you guys have any stories like that or anything that you guys want brought up, by all means, you can always email me.
That might be a good live stream, to be honest with you. If you live stream yourself playing one of those scary games,
These Nuts Sploosh or the
scary games, yeah, those are always fun reaction videos because they have some
those
pretty
scary
good
fucking
PC
games will make me sploosh. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But you can always email me. It's Brandon@buzzadamshow.com. So David being in the chat says Beavis and Butthead moment. Oh, we totally were. Like we were just giggling like idiots. So Kim's asking, what's your prediction on how far Oregon will go in the NCAA tourney? Congrats, know you're a fan. Yeah, like I did anticipate Oregon would beat Wisconsin, because the thing that not a lot of people realize about Oregon is Vegas had them at the 4th best odds to reach the Final Four at the beginning of the year. Granted, this was with Bol in the lineup, the guy who apparently Nike paid a ton of money to go to Oregon, which, by the way, if you're a college basketball fan and your team's good and you're like, oh, my team's doing it right, bullshit. Every team is not. They're paying people at this point. Everybody is. But even with Bol out, you had, Wooten out there. You had Pritchard out there looking really good. Like, we watched that game when my wife and I were over in Austin against UC Irvine. And it was gut-wrenching to watch because they had a nice big lead into the first, at the end of the first half. Beginning of the second half, they could not make a shot. It was like somebody took saran wrap and put it right over the top of the hoop, and they could not make a shot to save their life. All of a sudden, UC Irvine comes back, takes the lead, and then Oregon finds their touch and just blows the doors off them. I could see Oregon getting past Virginia. I think that's a definite possibility because Virginia has shown that they're already struggling. They struggled to get out of the first round for the second year in a row. Oregon's biggest weakness, though, is they can't shoot. They're a defense-oriented team. If their defense can be on lockdown and they get some shots out of guys like Pritchard, they could very easily beat Virginia. I do hope that they end up winning the whole thing, not just because I'm a fan, but my random-ass bracket where I clicked the random button once.
Oregon winning?
It has Oregon winning the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And that's why I stuck with that one, because what I did was I just clicked it once, and the first time I clicked the random button, I see Oregon winning it all, and I'm like, well, it's destiny. Like, I have to go with this.
Okay.
So who knows? Oregon's definitely a fun team to watch. Wooten, man, if you've never seen that guy, that dude puts on a block party. Like, that dude's just amazing to watch. The wife has gotten into it because she filled out a bracket at work, which was really cool. So, like, we're watching the Duke UCF game, and she's freaking out because she's got Duke winning the whole thing, and she's so concerned that her bracket's going to be busted if UCF wins. And, like, she's so fucking adorable watching this stuff. I love watching sports when she gives a shit. Like, there's times when she doesn't give a shit, and I'm like, all right, sweetheart, like, you can go do whatever you want. But, like, this was, like I love watching sports with her like that because she gets really into it. And I thoroughly enjoy being able to share those moments with her, which was a lot of fun when we were over in Austin. But yeah, so on that note, one of the last things I'll bring up today, we've gone a little long on this one too, haven't we? You guys are getting lucky here because I'm just starting to ramble and just kind of fucking going with it. But if there's ever any topics that you guys want to bring up, by all means, you guys are more than welcome to hit me up, Brandon@BuzzAdamsShow.com. You can always send a message to the Buzz Adams Morning Show Facebook page. And, of course, you can always bring it up in the YouTube chat as well, which is like Kim asking about Oregon and how far, I think they'll go in the NCAA tournament. So, by all means, if you want to, you're more than welcome to hit up in the YouTube chat. Last thing I wanted to kind of bring up before I get to the plugs and stuff at the end, my mom sent a package last week, and it's got a lot of different things in it from like my childhood. It's got my baby book, which I need to take a picture so we can put it up on the screen here in one of the future AfterBuzzes, because all it says is Brandon likes to listen to music loud, and it's and I'm like, there's nothing else in a baby book that could sum me up better than that. Is this whole and because there's that, and then there's also earlier on that Brandon likes to listen to rock music. And this is like at 2 years old. I sit in the middle of the living room and just kind of bob my head up and down. Apparently, I used to go do this thing where I'd go bonk like all the time. Like, how fucking obnoxious was I as a kid, man? Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I had to have been so irritating. Like, it was just constant. Like, my kid's not so bad. Like, she makes a ton of noise and she gets really fucking loud. And especially when you want quiet, you're like, oh, please just be quiet, just be quiet. I'm telling you, it's the payback because, man, when I was a kid, I was constant noise. I was even talking to my mom about it, and my mom was like, yeah, she goes, you ran everywhere. She goes, you couldn't walk. She goes, you had to fucking run and jump. Like, you were just this ball of energy. And that's how my daughter is, man. But she's I think she's a little more tame than I was. But anyway, so one of the things that she brought and sent over in this package was this journal that I did when I was in 7th grade. So it's 12-year-old, 13-year-old Brandon. and what I was thinking of doing. Because each one, each journal is done for a class, so it's maybe not even a page each journal. But if you guys want, and if you want to delve into 12-year-old Brandon's brain, I will bring that journal in every AfterBuzz. I will read an entry, a sequential entry from those. So if you guys want me to do this, let me know, because I don't want to do it if nobody's going to give a shit. But if you guys do, let me know. Type it in the YouTube chat. Say, yes, we want you to read the journal. You can hit me up on Twitter. You can hit us up, on the Facebook page, whatever it may be. But I thought that would be something kind of fun to do, because the really interesting thing with this is there's some major events that happened in that span of my life in this year. I won't ruin it, but there's some pretty big stuff that came up, and it's really interesting going back and reading what 12-year-old, 13-year-old Brandon thought of some of these things that had happened. So I thought that'd be kind of interesting. If you guys want me to do it, just let me know. Hit it up in the YouTube chat and let me know that, this would be something that you guys would be interested in. On that note, you guys got about 30, 60 seconds here before I start to wrap things up. So if there's anything else that you guys want, hit up the YouTube chat. Again, down below, make sure you're clicking the like button. Make sure that you're clicking the bell so you get the notifications. So like if we run into a problem like today where, we're a little bit delayed, that we'll have, there's a reason for the delay usually. It's usually either a computer issue or this room is busy, and that's what we were doing today as we were trying to figure out some stuff. We had to do a quick photo shoot with the morning show. But yeah, so if that's something you guys want, let me know. If there's anything you guys want brought up, you can always hit me up, Brandon@BuzzAdamsShow.com. Again, don't forget we do have the Buzz Adams Morning Show podcast. That's available on iTunes and Google Podcasts. We upload stuff daily to there, so if you missed something, you want to check it out, or maybe you want to re-listen to something, by all means, you can do that. Manny says just always blame Buzz. Man, I wish I could, Manny, but in here, he never comes in here, so we really can't blame him. Although, no, I take it back. Manny, my bad. I apologize, because we could technically blame him in a little bit, because as I'm trying to get everybody corralled to get into the green room so that we can do stuff, I walk down the hallway. I'm sitting here waiting. I go back. He's still fucking around on his computer. And I'm like, dude, you can do this later. I need to do this now. I need to get this done so we can do the poor producer Dave sitting in the front waiting room waiting for us to get done with this stuff. And he's too busy fucking around on his computer. So there you go, Manny. We just blamed Buzz. But yeah, on that note, we also have Rockstar 101. Latest episode is up. If here in El Paso, it'll sound familiar because it's the first interview that I did with Shim last August. It was, with my voice and his schedule, we weren't able to record a new episode. So what I did is I took the old audio from last August, and we've uploaded that as episode 7 of Rockstar 101. If you're here in El Paso, by all means, get to Shim's concert coming up on Saturday. If you're in Abilene, Shim is going to be in Abilene on Friday. So go check out his concert. Saturday, he'll be here in El Paso. We'll get to hang out with the guy. He's going to put on a phenomenal show. And then on Sunday, he and I are going to start throwing together some podcasts, and we're going to get some fun road stories from this latest tour because he's wrapping it up. He's going to hit up Abilene, El Paso. I think he was going to try to book one more show, but I don't know if he got one in or not. And then he's got to head back to Los Angeles. So we might be the final date of his Crucified tour, which is going to be a ton of fun. If you guys can make it, come and see his show. I'm definitely going to be there, and it's going to be a blast on Saturday. And it's just $5 at the door. I mean, it's $5. It's going to be at the Rock House. There's an event page up on Facebook if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, on that note, you guys have yourselves a fantastic day. You're welcome for the extra long AfterBuzz, I guess. I try to shoot for half an hour because half an hour usually that's kind of like the money spot, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, you guys got me rambling. And if you guys don't mind me rambling, I don't mind, I'll fucking blab on for an extra 10 to 15 minutes. But yeah, so on that note, have yourselves a fantastic Wednesday. Again, Shim's concert coming up on Saturday here in El Paso. Friday, he will be in Abilene. And, if you guys ever have any questions or anything, you can always email me, Brandon@BuzzAdamsShow.com. Have yourselves a glorious Wednesday. We'll be back here again next week, 10:30 Mountain Time on the KLAQ YouTube channel for the AfterBuzz. But tomorrow, bright and early, 5 a.m. Mountain Time for the Buzz Adams Morning Show. Big thanks to producer Dave for yet again hooking it up and being very patient and waiting out front while we waited for the cats to be corralled so we could take pictures. So on that note, have yourselves a fantastic Wednesday. I'll see you guys later.